Imagine a place where the line between the living and the dead is blurred, where family bonds continue even after death, and where funerals are not the end, but a beginning of another kind of relationship. In most cultures around the world, death is a solemn, mournful event marked by silence, tears, and prayers. Cemeteries are places of quiet respect, visited occasionally with flowers, but rarely with laughter. In Madagascar, however, things are different. Here, death is woven into the fabric of everyday life, not as an end, but as part of a cycle of remembrance and renewal. Every few years, families gather for one of the most extraordinary traditions in the world, a ritual called Famadihana, also known as the turning of the bones. Instead of sorrow, there is joy. Instead of silence, there is music. And instead of distance between the living and the dead, there is closeness, quite literally, as families exhume the remains of their ancestors, lovingly wrap them in fresh silk, and dance with them in a joyous celebration. Famadihana is not just a ritual. It is a story about family, belief, and the human need to keep love alive beyond the boundaries of time. The heart of Famadihana lies in the act of exhumation and celebration. Families wait for years, usually every 5 to 7, before holding the ceremony. The decision is often guided by resources, as the ritual requires new silk shrouds, food for a large gathering, and musicians to provide the festive atmosphere. When the day arrives, it is not a moment of fear or hesitation. Instead, the event begins with excitement, preparation, and reunion. Relatives who may not have seen one another for years return to their ancestral villages. The tombs, often impressive stone or concrete structures that serve as collective family resting places, are opened with care. Inside are the ancestors, wrapped in cloth, preserved by tradition. The bodies or bones are carefully removed, treated with reverence, and brought into the light. There is no shock, no sadness, only a recognition that these are loved ones, still present in spirit, still part of the family's story. Once outside, the remains are unwrapped, and the old shrouds are replaced with new ones, known as lambamina. These fine silk cloths are expensive, but they symbolize respect and renewal. Wrapping the ancestors anew is like refreshing the bond between the living and the dead. Then, the music begins. Traditional Malagasy bands play drums, flutes, and accordions, filling the air with rhythm and life. Families lift the ancestors high, carrying them in their arms or on their shoulders, and dance through the village. The celebration is not quiet. It is vibrant, filled with laughter, song, and stories. People feast together, sharing rice, meat, and drinks, while children watch with wide eyes, learning that death is not something to fear, but something to embrace as part of life's cycle. At the end of the day, the ancestors are returned to the tomb, wrapped carefully once more, and placed with love until the next turning. To understand Famadihana, one must understand the Malagasy worldview. In Madagascar, the dead are not gone. They are not silent shadows of the past. They are active members of the family, guardians who watch over the living, and powerful presences who can bless or withhold blessings. To honor them is to strengthen the connection between generations. To neglect them is to risk misfortune. Famadihana is, therefore, not only a cultural celebration but a spiritual necessity. It ensures that the ancestors are remembered, respected, and included in the life of the living. The ritual transforms grief into joy, turning what many societies see as final separation into a renewal of unity. By dancing with the dead, the Malagasy people show that love does not end at death. It continues, renewed with every turning. The origins of Famadihana are complex and fascinating. Madagascar is an island with a unique blend of cultures. Its people, the Malagasy, descend partly from Austronesian settlers from Southeast Asia and partly from African populations who arrived centuries ago. These roots shaped Madagascar's language, traditions, and worldview. Ancestor worship has deep roots in both Austronesian and African cultures, where the dead are revered as sources of wisdom and protection. Over time, these practices merged into something distinctly Malagasy. Famadihana is thought to have developed as a way of reaffirming ties with ancestors, ensuring fertility, prosperity, and harmony within the community. While no one can pinpoint exactly when it began, it has been practiced for centuries, passed down through generations as one of the island's defining cultural traditions. The very name, Famadihana, which means the turning or the turning over, reflects both the literal act of turning the bones and the symbolic turning of life itself, where death is not a wall but a doorway back to family. In Madagascar, tombs are not simply graves. They are powerful symbols of family identity. Families often invest more in building and maintaining tombs than in their houses. The tomb is eternal, a place where generations meet and remain united. During Famadihana, when the tomb is opened, it is not an act of desecration but of honor. To open a tomb is to reconnect with family history, to bring the past into the present. The living and the dead meet again in celebration, ensuring continuity. This emphasis on tombs and ancestors reflects a worldview in which individual identity is inseparable from family and lineage. To honor the ancestors is to honor oneself, one's heritage, and one's future descendants. Famadihana is not a private ritual. It is communal, involving extended families, neighbors, and even outsiders. Villages come alive with color, sound, and festivity. It is not unusual for hundreds of people to gather, with music echoing through the hills and laughter filling the air. The ritual thus strengthens not only family ties, but also community bonds. People share food and drink, exchange stories, and reaffirm their place within a network of kinship. For younger generations, it is a lesson in belonging. For older generations, it is a moment of pride and continuity. For everyone, it is a reminder that life is richer when shared across generations, both living and dead. Not everyone embraces Famadihana without question. Madagascar today is home to diverse religious communities, including Christians, Muslims, and followers of traditional beliefs. Some Christian churches discourage Famadihana, seeing it as incompatible with their teachings. They argue that it conflicts with the idea of resurrection and the Christian approach to death. Despite this, many Malagasy Christians still practice Famadihana, blending their religious faith with cultural tradition. For them, honoring ancestors does not contradict their religion but complements it. This blending of beliefs shows the adaptability of Malagasy culture, where tradition and modern faith coexist, sometimes uneasily but often harmoniously. Famadihana is not cheap. The cost of silk shrouds, food, and musicians can be overwhelming for many families. Some go into debt to afford the ritual, believing that it is better to honor ancestors properly than to save money. The expense highlights the depth of commitment families feel toward this tradition. It is not simply a performance, but a sacred duty, one that justifies sacrifice. At the same time, the rising cost of living in Madagascar has made Famadihana less frequent for some families. Yet even if it happens less often, its power remains. The act of turning the bones, whenever it occurs, carries the same symbolic weight, the same renewal of love and connection. No Famadihana is complete without music and dance. Music fills the air as families carry their ancestors, and the atmosphere is more like a festival than a funeral. Dancing with the dead may seem shocking to outsiders, but to the Malagasy, it is an expression of joy, love, and continuity. The ancestors are not burdens, but companions, carried high and honored with song. The dancing, sometimes wild and exuberant, sometimes slow and respectful, symbolizes the rhythm of life itself. It is a reminder that life goes on, that even in death, there is motion, energy, and connection. Famadihana has long fascinated anthropologists, travelers, and filmmakers. For outsiders, the idea of exhuming and dancing with ancestors is strange, even unsettling. But when seen within its cultural context, it reveals a profound truth about human beings, the desire to remain connected, to honor those who came before us, and to ensure that death does not erase memory. Anthropologists see Famadihana as a way of understanding Malagasy cosmology, where ancestors remain central to community life. Tourists who witness it often leave with a sense of awe, realizing that there are many ways to think about death and family beyond the Western model of silence and separation. In modern Madagascar, Famadihana is changing. Urban families in cities like Antananarivo often find it difficult to practice the ritual as their rural ancestors did. Space is limited, costs are high, and lifestyles are busier. Some families adapt by holding smaller versions of the ceremony or spacing them out over longer intervals. Others choose not to practice at all, influenced by modern religion or financial constraints. Yet in many rural areas, Famadihana continues much as it always has, preserving its vibrant essence. This balance between tradition and modernity reflects the broader challenges facing Madagascar: how to remain true to cultural roots while adapting to a rapidly changing world. Beyond religion and culture, Famadihana also has a psychological dimension. For the Malagasy, it offers closure, renewal, and emotional healing. By physically reconnecting with ancestors, families reduce the fear of death and reinforce the idea that loved ones never truly leave. Children grow up with less fear of mortality, seeing it not as an end but as part of life. Adults feel supported by the invisible presence of their ancestors, reducing loneliness and reinforcing identity. In this way, Famadihana functions not only as a cultural ritual, but as a profound form of therapy for the human condition, the fear of being forgotten. In the end, Famadihana is not just about death. It is about life. It is about family, continuity, and the refusal to let love die. In Madagascar, ancestors dance with their descendants. Tombs are opened to reveal not sorrow but joy, and death is turned, quite literally, into celebration. Famadihana challenges us to rethink our own ideas of mortality, memory, and what it means to honor those who came before us. For the Malagasy, life and death are not opposites but companions, bound together in an eternal rhythm. And as the music plays and the ancestors are carried high, the message is clear: love never dies. It simply turns, again and again, with every generation.